Hey InterVarsity, this is Jen coming at you not live from Arizona where I'm soaking up some of the desert sun. I wish that I could be there with you tonight. I miss you guys and I'll be back next week. But I wanted to talk a few minutes about where we've been and where we're going with our conversation about the gospel this semester. This is kind of like the intermission week where we get to talk about what's happened in the play and what's going to happen. We've talked about the gospel in terms of a play with 4 acts: creation and fall, redemption and restoration. And we started with creation, asking the question, why did God create it all? Well, our answer was pretty simple. It was for relationship. He's a good God that created good things for a good purpose. And He designed and orchestrated everything for His glory, so that we could have relationship with Him, so that we could have relationship with each other, and so that we could have relationship with creation by being good stewards of everything that He created. He gave us charge to take care of it all. And we talked a lot about how beautiful that was and what that meant for everything, and how He's good. But in the next week, we talked about the fall, or the entrance of sin and brokenness into society. We agreed that the world was originally made perfect, but if we're really honest, it's not perfect anymore. There's a lot of injustice and brokenness, and pain and suffering, and so where did it all come from? Well, we talked about sin in that week, where we answered the question, why is it this way? We defined sin as self-worship, idolatry, relational breach, and ultimately leading to death. It's self-worship because in sin, we decide we want to know and decide what's best for our lives instead of letting God do that. We decide that God doesn't really know how to handle our lives, so we'd rather do it ourselves. We know what's best, and so we take control, and we dethrone God and become our own gods. Sin is idolatry, which is the worship of anything except for God. It's taking anything, even a good thing, and making it an ultimate thing. Sin isn't just doing bad things, it's also making good things into bad things by worshiping them. Sin is when we do what we ought not to do, and we don't do what we should do. And it affects everything. Sin includes our words, our thoughts, our deeds, even our motives. Sin always results in a breach of relationship. It breaks relationship with God, it breaks relationship with each other, and it breaks relationship with creation that we were supposed to take care of, but instead we use and abuse it. The bottom line is we were meant to love God and serve people and use things. But instead we serve things and use people, and most of the time we just forget all about God. So where does that leave us? It'd be great to just kind of gloss over the sin part without lingering too much. But we can't. We don't get to. You see, we can all agree that the world is messed up, but it's really different to admit that we're part of the problem, that the root of the problem is in my own heart. I need to go beyond agreeing that there's brokenness and admit that I'm part of it. I'm broken. That I think angry thoughts. I have a problem with pride. I fail to put others first in my life. I have a huge problem with letting God make the decisions. And if I'm really honest, I have a big idolatry problem too. I struggle to allow God to direct my thoughts and my words, but only when I can recognize these things, my own brokenness, do I get to really understand and embrace the next act of this play of the gospel. That's redemption, when Jesus comes and rescues me from my brokenness. Only when I get to understand that I personally need rescuing does Jesus' death on the cross become more than just a nice story. Think about it this way. What if Sam and Frodo didn't really know what the ring could do? What if they didn't really know what Sauron was capable of, or how evil he really was, or how much that the ring was going to influence them? What if Harry Potter didn't know that Lord Voldemort was so evil? It wouldn't make that great of a story, because we wouldn't know how much they needed to rescue the whole world from those evils. It's the same with us. If we don't know and won't admit how broken we really are, then we won't get to know how much we need rescuing. And then we won't really get to understand how beautiful Jesus' sacrifice was and continues to be to save us from our own sin and our own selves. So tonight it's a little bit of an intermission, like during a play. We talked about creation and fall. Now you have a choice. I have a choice. We can decide to think about the play and just continue to watch it like it's a nice story. Or I suppose you could leave. I guess a lot of people leave during the intermission. But if you stay for the second half, and I hope you do, I hope you also make a more important choice. You and I need to decide whether or not we're going to continue as passive observers of the gospel as a nice story. Or are you and I going to become part of the story by recognizing that our sin and brokenness needs redeeming also, so that we become recipients of the redemption and restoration of Jesus instead of passive observers? Only then can the next two acts of the play really be great news. That's what the gospel really means. It means good news. And when we know how much we need saving, it's good news that Jesus saves us. So tonight, we're going to spend some time in small groups, and I'm going to spend time praying for you guys. And I hope you'll decide to stick around for the next half of the play. I hope you'll decide that until we can admit our own brokenness, Jesus' sacrifice isn't that big of a deal. I hope that you'll open up a little bit. Maybe share areas of brokenness in your own life where you want to see Jesus' redemption, where you want to see Jesus come and save the day. This is a safe place, and I hope that you can trust each other and pray for each other. I'm praying for you, and I can tell you as somebody who's experienced the Lord's redemption through the sacrifice of Jesus, it's a beautiful thing, and there's so much freedom. But first, we have to admit our own brokenness. It's hard, but there's freedom on the other side. The gospel really is good news. But until we can admit our own brokenness and our own need for saving, it's just a nice story.